Utie oha extra ponkno. Needs FM.
Right. We are told of pre-budget briefing by the minority. What is it about?
We over the last 3 years, we've always had an engagement with the media and through the media with the people of Ghana ahead of every budget. So this year, which is going to be the very final budget of the finance minister. In fact, let's say that this is going to be the very final budget of the Akufo-Addo government because they are definitely leaving power after this. We had an engagement again just to bring out a few concerns even before the budget got presented on Wednesday.
What are the few naughty areas you want us to focus on?
What we wanted the country to appreciate is that we believe that especially when you are dealing with an economy, you are dealing with numbers, which numbers need to be trusted by the people of the country and also by all the international people who are monitoring us, different countries, the World Bank, the IMF. It is very important for the government and for that matter, the finance minister, to do everything possible to show truthfulness and to show credibility. We've had major issues with a number of what we call gymnastics that the finance minister has been using, which gymnastics amount to literally deceiving what you call the people of the country relating to the numbers that are coming out. So in this particular presentation, we took time to elaborate a number of those things that we feel are not good for the country. We also use the opportunity to let the president of the country appreciate that in his high office, certain untruthful statements relating to our economy should not be encouraged. We explained, for example, when the president recently told the world that somehow in 2016, the fiscal deficit that he inherited stood at 9.3%. When he actually does know, that the numbers that have been reported even by his own finance minister, even in the recent media review, show that we did not have 9.3%. They're much lower because if you are using real figures, you need to be consistent. But the president deliberately decides to be using old figures when actually he's using figures that are new to talk about his own performance. That is the kind of, shall I call it, unfortunate tendency that the people of Ghana do not require coming from the highest office holder of the land. The president must be trustworthy, he must be credible, he must be truthful, and we believe that we need to bring some of those issues to the forefront.
Honorable member,
yes.
Beyond the deception the minority talked about, with the specific example of the inappropriate use of the rebase figure of 9.3%, is there any other evidence to suggest that there's been a concrete, deliberate attempt to deceive the Ghanaian public with the figures?
Yeah, we brought a few as well to show. Let me give you a typical example. At the end of 2016, the debt stock of the country, and which has subsequently been corroborated by, shall I call it, the true record, as you can find, especially if you check with the true record as we have in the Controller and Accountant General and so on, and which subsequently in the Public Account Committee has to point to the finance minister. He has to make sure he corrects those misleading reports that he brought out. At the end of 2016, the total debt of the country stood at 120 billion cedis. The finance minister deliberately used the exchange rate of March 2017 in order to create the impression that the total debt stock at the end of 2016 was actually 122 billion. So that was actually what you call a deliberate strategy, which actually is a deceitful strategy, in order to create the impression that the debt stock that he had made at the end of 2016 was higher. And we as a minority have had occasion to point that to him, that he needed to correct that record. He needed to stop deceiving the people of Ghana concerning the record that he made at the time he took over. But up to now, he has not had the courage to be able to do so. The Public Account Committee has pointed the same thing out to him. He still hasn't had the courage to do what is right. So what we did today was to again bring that issue to the forefront. But listen, if you're the finance minister, the world expects that nothing short of truthful numbers should be coming from you. If you are capable of lying, relating to the numbers of your own economy, it means that you cannot be trusted for anything. The world cannot trust you when you come out with any other figures. So that's one of the issues, for example, we brought out again today. Another issue that we brought today had to do with, for example, the way the finance minister have deliberately sought to create false impression using, for example, the financial bailout. The amount of money that we are using to be able to do this financial bailout absolutely must reflect in the deficit numbers. You can't, in one breath, create impression that somehow you are using money to take care of what you call companies, like the banks and so on, and yet that debt is not reflecting in the in the deficit of the country. So we told the finance minister, listen, it is important to show consistency. The reason why this is really important is because actually the IMF, the World Bank, and all the financial markets do know that the deficit that the finance minister is talking about is not the correct deficit, because they, in their books, account for a much higher deficit. But the finance minister, in order to continue peddling the lie and creating impression that somehow the deficit that he is having is much lower, continue to do this gymnastics. And the whole aim of it is simply to come out and tell the people of Ghana, our numbers are good numbers, when it is that you actually are hiding figures and creating false impression, which is very, very, very dangerous. There is any other position you can toy with. If you're talking about the finances of a country, the world expects that the numbers you come up with must be factual, must be truthful. There should no gymnastics about them. And unfortunately, that's exactly one of the issues again. Similar thing has happened, for example, with the payment that had to do with what you call the independent power producers. The treatment of fees as far as the deficit is concerned is exactly the same thing that the finance minister has done. So you can see a systematic pattern of trying to put out false figures in order to be able to come boasting that our figures are great, our figures are wonderful, when it is really that you are just playing gymnastics in order to deceive the people. Now, why this is important, my brother, is because you see what? Trustworthy.
We will come there, but then we want to find out more about the impact on the economy if the government need to rely on inappropriate or faulty figures. Yane Honorable Member of Parliament for Ketu South, Ura Franklin Fiave Fifi Pete, and Etwetwe Enkomono, a member of the Finance Committee. Or say Abaya Yane Tuma we Nana Kufuado Abeno, Unino Kurema Ghana for na no many bini say GDP kurano on an 9.3% abra entenesa one can womb say a rebase figure near de afi so ye dead stock or say wakwako farm match figures the above assistance say 120 million 120 billion abra wasn't kwakano kure wo mo de kire yen afi so sika ye de akwakọ gigi bank bailout no so no omo man reflect to official records na fe ye pese ebusa no say we nyina no kwamben so na eha oman no. What are the negative effects of banding faulty figures in order to present a rosy picture of the figures?
You see, as I said earlier, leadership is all about trustworthiness. If you cannot even tell the truth, even about your numbers, exactly that's what you have. You have exactly the same thing which we are seeing all over the country today, where the government is boasting about how great the economy is doing, when you can see, for example, the state of roads in our country, in a total state of disrepair. Why? Because you are not being truthful. Instead of being honest about the true situation, you are busy using gymnastics to deceive people. But the reflection in the real day-to-day living of the people is the opposite. So you can see, for example, the state of roads in our country, the total state of disrepair. I was telling the people, the last time I saw this massive state of disrepair of roads in Ghana, that would be, somewhere in the region, somewhere in 1981. Where before PNDC came into office. I've not seen this systematic level of disrepair that we see today, because you are not telling the truth, and the real state of the economy will be shown. The real state of the economy will be shown by the amount of filth you see all over Accra today. For the president that actually came, claiming that he was going to make Accra the cleanest capital in Africa, what you see today is a complete reflection of the opposite. Why? Because you are lying to the people. You are not being honest with the numbers. But you cannot lie about the real state. So the real state will continue to show what it's showing. You can see, for example, the complete what you call hardship that is engulfed this country today. The level of suffering that is engulfing the country. I'm not saying this is the first time any hardship has happened, but compared to all the trumpet that is being blown about the numbers being great, Ghana's economy has never been this good. If you see the level of hardship, I mean, the job loss that has become virtually the order of the day. I mean, the increased cost of living. I mean, the high cost of living that we are seeing today. I mean, you can see exactly what is going on in our various districts, where virtually very little is happening. You promise $1 million for every constituency, and you go into this constituency today, the thing you can see is KVIP being constructed. KVIP, which was being constructed by President Kufuor when he used what you call how do they call it, HIPIC funds to construct KVIP. Today, KVIP has become what it is Ghana must celebrate in our districts and our municipalities, from a government that promised every constituency $1 million. So, my brother, you can see really the problem is that when you actually decide to use deception and lies, what it is that you will be exposed, and that exposure is coming through what is happening in the day-to-day, what you call conditions of our people. I mean, contractors everywhere, you can see the level of crime because their monies have been locked up for several years, no hope. And then some of them really are being what you call shortchanged. They create means by which some bank would discount their money. And the people that have worked for this country that you owe in previous government have always made sure they make full payment to them. Today, under this very what you call forced government, they have to literally go to some bank for the bank to discount sometimes as much as 14 to almost 20% of their money. It's something you owe them that you're supposed to pay them. You are discounting because you feel that they are in need and they are desperate for their money, so you are taking advantage of them. But that's exactly what happens when you continue to lie, when you don't have the courage to tell the truth. So we are bringing these issues not just in terms of talking about numbers, but how those numbers are actually bringing the real state of what you call contradiction.
Rather, we would want to find out, why do you choose to come out with this briefing ahead of the budget?
No, I've told you that consistently. I mean, since 2017, we've always had an engagement with the public through the media ahead of every budget. So this is not a new thing we've done. We've done it 2017, 2018, 2019. I mean, consistently we've done so. So it's not like a new thing at all. And the reason why we do so is simply because we want to give our perspectives in order to be able to let the country prepare their mind towards what it is that the government will be coming out with. Because that helps the country to be able to, compare exactly what they are being told by the officials and what we believe to be the hidden state of the country that they don't really want the country to get to know.
Right. So what should we as citizens expect in the coming budget in the minorities' perspective?
We as citizens should appreciate that when it is that our friends come with their typical slogan, it's exactly what it is. It's just a mere slogan. When you hear them shout $1 million constituency per every, $1 million per every constituency, they should understand it's just empty slogans. You understand? That's what you call cosmetic slogan. When they come shouting one district, one district, one factory, it's the same empty slogan. You understand? Basically, what they do, instead of establishing real factories in the various districts as they promised, that they will use the resources available in those various districts and be able to establish a new factory in all those places. They've gone about what you call begging companies that have been in existence sometimes 20 years for them to put billboards of one district, one factory. Again, because of the same Kwekwanansi system of governance, which really has to do with just trying to deceive the people. You understand? So when they hear them, for example, talk about one village, one dam, they should understand that one village, one dam has become a shenanigan that is being what you call discredited all over. You go into the northern part of Ghana, everybody does know that it's just a complete shenanigan. They are using it to throw dust in the eyes of the people. So people should appreciate that. Listen, this is a government that in opposition claim that macroeconomic figures do not matter. You remember when this country was having 33 long months of single-digit inflation? What did you hear them say? It doesn't matter what is single-digit inflation. The only thing that matters is the cost of goods in our market, the prices of various goods and services, and those prices are going up. Today, this same government expects the people of Ghana not to remember those same things they said, but the people of Ghana should somehow be impressed because they are shouting that they've got inflation that is at a low. You understand? So the people of Ghana must prepare themselves in order to not be deceived by throwing about these figures and a lot lot of those figures, as we point to you, coming from the finance minister who is always quoting Bible and creating impression that he's the greatest Christian, but going about what you call doing gymnastics and deceiving people with numbers, the people of Ghana should be prepared so that they are not deceived.
I am through with you, but then, as usual, the show is interactive, and then we do receive messages from our listeners. And one particular listener in the United States would want me to procure your view as to the 51 or the 54 persons who are supposed or who are dubbed to be family, friends, relatives of the president involved in cronyism, nepotism, and favoritism. Do you have any view of that?
I think my party have spoken about that very amply. Normally, I wouldn't want to repeat too much. I think Sami Jemfi has done an excellent job. So I would rather want the gentleman to, just take time and listen to Sami Jemfi again, because I think everything that has to be said has been said. Again, to be honest, it's the same thing I've talked about really, which is really has to do with the double talk of the people who are in power today. Yesterday, the same thing was wrong, but today somehow they justify it. They tell you today that, listen, all those people are qualified, and it doesn't really matter if everybody has to come from one family. As long as they are qualified, that's great. But somehow that same principle did not apply yesterday. You understand? So when you have a situation where you have a group that actually will condemn something yesterday and today justify the same thing, it simply means that group does not have to be in office, because leadership, as I said, is all about credibility. It's all about consistency.
But would you imagine that when Fifi Kwete was nominated as a minister at the appointments committee, he was questioned as to certain pronouncements, and then he said he was in the realm of propaganda. And for that matter,
I never said that.
Okay, what did you say then?
I never said that. They were asking about things that were published by a newspaper, and I told them that a newspaper publication is not the same as official pronouncement that was made by me as the person who was in charge of communication. So I never at any point said I was in a realm of propaganda. That must be maybe either a false recollection or maybe somebody's imagination.
Would you ever imagine Sami Jemfi could one day be nominated as a minister, and some of these comments he would then not be able to back it up and say that, oh, it was a publication somewhere?
No. Everything that he has said officially will remain something he has to stand by. And I stood by every single official thing that I've done. But if a newspaper publishes something you want to attribute it to me, that will be different. But every single thing that I have said, as an executive of my party, speaking on behalf of my party, I stood by. And not one time did I ever have to back away from any official pronouncement I had made.
Right.
So I expect Sami Jemfi to stand by what he says. And of course, every human being sometimes can get it wrong. And if you get it wrong, you should have the honor to say, yes, I get it wrong. Even CNN gets it wrong sometimes. BBC gets it wrong. I'm sure that you have made a few errors yourself.
Yes.
It's just man enough to say, listen, on this score, I got it wrong. But the things that Sami Jemfi has said, I believe are very well researched. And I think the public themselves can verify and know that, listen, what is happening now is simply shameful. It's sad. It's unfortunate. We've never seen anything like that. Kwame Nkrumah never did this. Even Bustia didn't do this. President Kufuor didn't do this. Hillary Liman didn't do this. Rawlings never did this. Prof. Mills didn't do this. President Mahama never did this. What we are seeing today is simply the lowest of the low, and that is unfortunate. Because honestly, you know what? President Akufo-Addo has had a great opportunity. Why? Because in terms of experience, I would say that he's one person who moved into office after a vast level of experience. At almost a mature age of about 70, you enter into government. You've had such a rich experience behind you. And for him to really take things to this level, reduce governance to this level, it's just unfortunate. That totally is not good.
Quite interesting listening to you, Honorable Member of Parliament for Ketu South. Thank you so much.
My brother, let's find time and meet again.
Certainly.
I don't see you at all. So
all right. Thank you so much.
All right. Sure.
Honorable Member of Parliament for Ketu South and a member of the Finance Committee of the Ghanaian Parliament, Mr. Franklin Fiave Fifi Kwete.
Needs FM.